Joining us. So we are there's a group of 4 of us for tonight. We're excited to answer some of your questions. We actually have a list of questions we've received over the past few days that we'll put up on there so you know to expect that question. But throughout the webinar, feel free to just type in your questions and we'll be sure to answer them either at the end or throughout the presentation. So just to give you a little bit of a rundown of what to expect tonight, we're going to introduce ourselves in a minute. We're going to talk about, we're lucky enough that 2 of our deans on the call both have students here. They are parents and deans, so they're going to share that experience with us. We're going to talk about the move-in process and on-campus testing. I know there are a lot of questions about that, and quarantine. The deans are going to talk about what academic schedules look like, why your student has 3 classes instead of 4, how to contact your academic advisor and how your student's academic advisor may be contacting them this week. A little snapshot of orientation. We'll get to the frequently asked questions that have come in over the past week, and then we'll get to your questions and answers. These are the questions that have come in over the past few days. We'll leave them on the board just for a few minutes so that you can see what to expect to be answered tonight in addition to our agenda. So I'll let our panel introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Lisa Kaenzig. I'm the Dean of William Smith College. This coming year will be my 18th year in the Dean's office. I have 2 daughters, one who just graduated from college, or as much as we could do virtually, and my other daughter who's going to be a junior this fall here at the colleges. And I'm really excited to talk with you all tonight.
And I'm David Mapstone. I've been here as well for 18 years in the Dean's office. Lisa and I came in together as contemporaries. And I am also a graduate of Hobart College. I graduated in '93. I also have a daughter here at Hobart and William Smith. She is a rising senior. I have 2 other children, one at St. Lawrence and one who is still in high school. And I am very happy to be here as well.
My name is Barile. I'm the Assistant Vice President and Dean of Student Engagement and Conduct. I'm also an instructor of a first-year seminar, and this is my 11th year here at Hobart and William Smith.
Hi everyone, I'm Shelle Basilio-Murray, and I'm happy to be here with you tonight. I'm the Assistant Dean of Student Engagement, and I'm starting my 8th year at the colleges.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started.
David, do you want to jump in first, or would you rather I did? Talking a little bit about parenting a first-year student.
Should I give my whole spiel? Should I do the whole thing?
Go ahead. Yeah, do your abbreviated version. Go right ahead.
I can't do it. So
the spark notes, as they would say.
Yeah,
the spark notes.
Real quick. So I usually give a little talk at orientation about helicopter parents and parents needing to kind of let go and have students kind of build their own career and their own life during college, during their 4 years, and it's very important for them to do that. And then all of a sudden, COVID hit, and it totally took me, and I think the whole country and the whole world, and shook them and rocked them to their core. And certainly me as well. So I have a little bit of a different message, and that is that, of course, as parents, we are extremely concerned about the safety and health and well-being of our children, especially as they move on to a new environment, especially as they move on to a college environment. What I can tell you is that that is something that we've been thinking about at Hobart and William Smith for a very, very, very long time, way before COVID ever hit in the United States and in the world. We've always thought about the health and safety and wellness of students at Hobart and William Smith and what it takes to make this a safe campus for students, a safe environment for all students and all faculty and staff, a great learning environment. So as far as parents go, and as far as parenting a first year, I think it makes sense for parents to be a little anxious about sending your student off to campus in Geneva, New York. But you should be somewhat assured that we have been really interested and on top of kind of the issues of health, wellness, safety, creating a campus community and climate that's welcoming and safe for all students for as long as I can remember. So in some sense, COVID really doesn't affect what we've really been doing. It just amplifies it quite a bit, I guess. As a parent, sure, you're going to be anxious sending your student to campus, but we in the dean's office and in student life, and certainly with faculty, want to create a partnership with you so that your student can live their best lives while they're here in Geneva, New York at Hobart and William-Smith. Our feeling is, our kind of motto is in the dean's offices is what can we do in order to make sure that your student gets the very most out of the Hobart and William-Smith experience. And if you as a parent can help us leverage the institution to get the most out of it for your student, then we're creating a good partnership together. And that's what I've done with my daughter in relationship to Hobart and William-Smith as a parent. And it's worked out pretty well so far. And hopefully I'll get a chance to do that with my youngest daughter as well.
And I just wanted to say, this is an amazing place. I've raised my children here in Geneva. David lives right down the road. In fact, he's the one who told me about my house going up for sale when I bought it all those years ago. This is a really small and tight community, and we know each other, and we're going to know your children. And I know as a mother sending two of my children, one off pretty far away, and then ended up going abroad for a whole year during college, and the other one, even though it was just right here, those were really big emotional days for me and in the weeks leading up. And I know it's even more intensified this year with everything going on. And we will all be here to support your children, but also at times maybe you. And you're always, of course, welcome to email us or call us. We're doing all these webinars this summer because we know that you have a lot of extra questions, even more than you would have had at any other time. So we'll be here. We'll be here for you. We'll certainly be here for your children. I also want to let you know that David and I are on the call tonight because we are parents of current students, as Brandon said earlier. But we actually have great colleagues in the dean's offices, and our colleagues Kelly Payne and Joe Mink will be your children's class deans. So they will welcome them at orientation. You will hear from them in a special webinar they're going to be doing during orientation. And you'll be able to either log in if you're able to at that point, or we will be recording it so you can look at it later if you're not able to join us during that particular time. And they will work with your students all the way through their time here at the colleges. And so that will be one solid person all the way through during their experience here. But we're all here to help, all of us on this call, so many more of our colleagues who aren't able to be with us tonight. We're all going to be here to really welcome you and your students into the Hobart and William-Smith family.
And for the students who are on the call tonight, because this is for students as well, you can see that we are all very supportive and parental figures, but we're going to get to know you as well. So let's get started. Let's talk about move-in. So the move-in experience, we've emailed a lot about it. You got an email with your roommate assignment, and it also talked about the move-in experience and how to sign up for a move-in appointment. The dates for arrival for first-year students, we suggest an August 15th starting date for arrival, and you can arrive anytime up to the 20th. If you need to come earlier, there are other dates available, and you're more than welcome just to select that appointment date right on your My Housing screen. We're going to give you a reminder of that link at the end of the PowerPoint presentation. There are a specific number of appointments available each day. So on the 15th, we might allow 100 people to be moving in, and then again on the 16th, another 100 people. And that's to really de-densify the number of people who are in the halls. We want to give you an opportunity to bring your parents, for parents to bring other siblings, as limited as possible, right? But 2 parents, 2 guests, siblings if needed, all wearing the appropriate face cloths, of course, but that way you can have a real send-off and say goodbye to your family without feeling rushed. So that's the point of having move-in appointments. This is actually a little bit different than if you were on the call on Tuesday night, and that's because we continually take your feedback and evolve it so that it meets your needs. So on Tuesday night, if you were on the call, we announced that August 1st through the 7th, check-in would be at residential education outside of their building. However, we realized that we could get everything started at the barn for both centralized check-in for COVID-19 testing and key distribution a lot earlier. So if you're arriving August 3rd through the 24th, you simply go to the barn. The 1st and 2nd falls on a weekend, so that's considered an after-hours check-in. And I know our email last week said there's no such thing as an after-hours check-in. We heard that feedback as well, and we're going to tell you how you or your student can arrive after hours, gain access to their residence hall, and then check in the next day. Orientation does begin August 20th at noon, so there are some move-in appointments earlier in the day so that you can move in that morning. There are also some move-in appointments later that afternoon in case that's the only time you can be here. It's completely fine if you have to arrive a little bit late. We promise to catch your student up.
So the move-in process will be really streamlined. So as Brandon mentioned, you will sign into your My Housing portal where all of your information will be. It is very simple to select a move-in time that works best for you and your family. We want to be as flexible as possible in this process because we know how stressful dropping your student off can be in a traditional year without all of the additional challenges of COVID. So pick the day that works best for you and we will do everything we can to accommodate that. For students who are arriving early before orientation, we'll be providing meals at no cost to students and families. We're doing everything we can to remove every barrier to success and support for first-year students on campus. So a couple of days before you arrive to campus, again, right on your My Housing form, or your My Housing portal, you'll fill out the health form, the full complete health form, and commit to the health and safety policies of our community. Then the day that you arrive to campus, you'll start step 3, which is the daily screening. It's super quick, super easy, and you'll get really used to this. We'll all be completing this daily health screening every day. From there at the barn, you'll get tested, or you can bring your test results with you. You can upload them to your My Housing. So there's a lot of options around testing for students. And then you'll get your key and be able to move right into your hall.
Great. And along with your key, you're also going to get your kit. So we're going to be giving out hand sanitizer, face cloths, everything that you could need, educational material to feel comfortable as you move in. As Shelle said, COVID testing is occurring right at the barn. But we did say, and there are already some questions tonight, how do I get tested before I arrive to campus? So the message also said you had to submit your results from within 5 days. And we really understand that testing is taking a little bit longer. Some states are not yet using rapid results testing, and that's completely fine. So we have adjusted to say you have to submit proof of administration of a COVID-19 test from within 5 days up to 5 days before your move-in time. So all you would need to submit if you're choosing to go off campus for a COVID-19 test is the proof of administration of the test. We will allow you to submit your results to the same exact form up to 2 to 3 days after your arrival. And that's because if you were to come to campus and take a test on our campus, which is free, it would take about 2 to 3 days for our results to be provided to us. It's about a 24 to 48 hour window. So when you arrive on campus, prior to August 7th, you would actually, sorry, see, we didn't update this slide. The news came in just 3 hours ago. So prior to August 7th or after August 7th as well, you would arrive straight to the barn. You would have your test there. You're actually going to mostly stay in your car. It's a drive-through process. You'll go through the parking lot. There'll be a tent where you will stop and sign any necessary paperwork for your COVID-19 test, and you'll be swabbed. This is a self-administered test with the supervision of our nurse practitioners. It's not the test that goes really far back, so that's not what you're self-administering. It's actually a test sponsored by the Broad Institute that is about a Q-tip size swab that you'll swab 3 times in this nostril, 3 times in that nostril. It gets placed in a secure container, and then it gets sent off to Boston. And we'll get your results within 24 to 48 hours. We are not specifically asking people to quarantine in their room. It's like only stay in the room between their test and their results. We are asking that people limit travel as much as possible. So orientation is going to be a lot online, but also in really small groups, all in the same place outside. You'll have a special place that is your group space, and you may go to a dining location, but really those are the 3 or 4 locations you're going to be going to. We'll tell you your results as soon as it comes in, and we ask for people to stay near their room, self-isolate, only go outside the room for their necessities until the results do come in.
So we've received quite a few questions about quarantine, and right now New York State is requiring a 14-day quarantine if you're traveling from an advisory state. For students who are quarantining, meals will be delivered right to your room. So you will quarantine right in your fall housing assignment. To make things simple and streamlined, we will have a form right on your My Housing website for you to provide any dietary restrictions, any preferences you have around food, so that we can make sure we're providing you with meals that help you to feel comfortable during your quarantine. Students are permitted during quarantine to be outside, to get some fresh air and to go for walks, enjoy the beautiful Geneva, New York weather. We just ask that you wear a mask and that you are socially distant from everyone else. Laundry will also be picked up once a week for you during quarantine. We're contracting with a laundry vendor who will do your laundry, and then we will drop it back off at your room during your quarantine. You're muted.
Right, I am. Really quickly, I'm going to answer one question that just came in. It asked, are we in discussion with the state to allow quarantine at home? We are still in discussion with the state. We're expecting the state to provide additional guidance very early next week about whether, if you're from a state that is on our travel advisory list, whether you're able to quarantine 14 days at home and then come right to campus. So we don't have an answer for that yet. We're really hopeful that that takes place. So visitation is limited on our campus this semester. Usually guests are able to go to another student's residence hall, interact with them in their room or on their floor, and have spontaneous small gatherings either for studying or social spaces. We're going to have to limit that. The New York State does say that we have to visit limitation from hall to hall. So we will allow folks to interact in study spaces in a residence hall. So for instance, one of our residence hall has a public classroom and study space right on the first floor. So people will be able to access that space, but access into the upper areas of the residence halls, bedroom spaces, is going to be limited in order to make sure we maintain a healthy and safe environment.
So after hours check-in, as Brandon said, we heard student feedback and family feedback, and in an effort to be as flexible as possible, we are offering students the opportunity to check in after hours. So while the formal check-in process will be closed, you can still arrive to campus and reside in your fall housing assignment overnight. So you'll contact campus safety. They will give you access to your room, but you will not receive your physical bedroom key. The next morning, you'll arrive to the barn and you'll go through our standard check-in process. So you'll get your COVID test and then you'll get your keys at that time the next morning. A note about after hours check-in, we would ask that you choose the early check-in date on your My Housing to ensure that we know that you're arriving after hours that day, rather than choosing the the day after you physically arrive to campus.
Thank you. Really quickly, some questions that came up that are really relevant right this second. The health form is not available on housing.hws.edu yet. It will actually only be released to you about 5 days before your arrival to campus, because the questions are very specific about your current medical state, any exposure over the summer, things that really we don't want you answering right now, and that might change in a few weeks. So that will only become available 5 days before your move-in appointment. And there was one other, I also want to clarify, if coming from a state that is on the advisory list, does that mean that they can't go into any building for 2 weeks? If you are coming for the quarantine on our campus, which we allow you to be here, food will be delivered, laundry services provided, you do have to stay in your residence hall room for those 14 days, except for going outside and getting some fresh air. But food will be delivered to you. We'll pick up your laundry, do it for you through a vendor off-site. But yes, you'll have to stay isolated into your student's residence hall for that period of time. So I'm going to pass it off to Dean Kaenzig to talk a little bit about the first year schedule.
Yeah, this is one we've been getting a lot of questions about for the last week, I guess, since the schedules were released to students on Monday afternoon. It's felt like a long week, hasn't it, Shelley? Because we've been getting all the res ed questions from that, and certainly in the dean's offices, a lot of questions about the academic experience. So students at the colleges take a total of 4 courses typically each semester, and that will be true for all of the new first years as well, just as it was for all the classes before them. They're currently placed in 3 courses, which was done mostly by Deans Mink and Payne, who I was referring to earlier, your students' class deans. David and I also helped with that and hit a little bit towards the end of the registration period. So we've put them in classes based on what their interests were on the academic preference form that they filled out in either May or early June. And because we know sometimes there are changes for what students are interested in, or they didn't have time to take one of the placement exams in chemistry or math or one of the languages, we leave that 4th course for them to choose at orientation. So they'll have multiple meetings remotely with their first year seminar professor. Actually, Brandon's teaching one of the first year seminar this year. And they'll be able to talk several times with them, including over email now. Several of them have already even been in touch with those first year seminar advisors. So for all students, whoever is teaching their first year seminar is also going to be their advisor until they declare the major a little later in usually the sophomore year. And that tends to work out quite well. And so that's a really nice thing that we have that really cements that connection for them for academic advising. So they'll have time at orientation to meet with their advisor and also then be sitting in those small groups Brandon referred to, which I think will be 7 or 8 students with one of the orientation mentors, the upper class students, and they'll be able to help them as well as their faculty member being remote, be able to help them with that 4th course. And then all of us in the dean's offices and the registrar's office will also be here to assist them with that. David, did you want to add anything about that, about the academic schedule?
Yeah, just one quick thing. I've been getting a lot of questions about AP courses and those sorts of college courses that you might want to transfer in to Hobart and William-Smith. A lot of those courses have not been transferred in yet. So they haven't been really calculated into your current schedule. So when Dean Mink and Dean Payne were putting together schedules for students over the course of the summer, they really didn't have information about AP courses and other college credits that may be transferred in at that time. So there may be some adjustments going on later on during orientation, like Lisa talked about, and that'll happen with your advisor. But just so you're aware, we didn't forget that you took those AP courses. Those are still valuable. If you have a 4 or 5 on the exam, we'll accept those credits. And we'll certainly look at those, and that may affect your schedule as you move forward. So just keep that in mind as you're thinking about your schedule.
I just wanted to add a few things because we had some great questions come in. There are a few first-year students who are already in 4 classes, and there are a variety of reasons for that. There aren't very many, maybe 20 total. If they're not sure of the reason, they're welcome to write our offices, and we'll be able to tell them why that is the case. But in the vast majority of cases, about 95% of the first years have 3 courses. They'll only be able to add that 4th one or make changes during the orientation period, and we'll give them lots of time to talk with their advisor. We really want them to be able to have that time here on campus with upper class students who can give them good advice, certainly to meet with their advisor and really get that guidance that they are going to need. And believe it or not, sometimes they change their mind between now and when they arrive on campus, just like they sometimes have changed their mind since May or June. So, you know, we've also had a few students who said, I don't know what I put on my form because one of my parents did that for me. Actually, I was too busy trying to finish high school remotely, you know, so someone did that for me. So I wouldn't have said any of those things. So we always have to have all those sort of conversations. So they'll have quite a bit of time. Someone else asked a question about credit hours, and we do things differently here. And that is that students have to have at least 32 courses. And we have a credit system that's a little different than many schools. So 32 courses to graduate from the colleges with the right number in their major and minor and the goals that we require, et cetera. But we don't have the same sort of credit system that a lot of other schools have. We're more similar to a lot of the small liberal arts in New England and the Mid-Atlantic states in doing that. So that's a little confusing. I know when I first came here, that's different than the systems I had been used to too. So you don't need to worry as much about the credit hours as that your student has at least 4 courses each semester.
So David, could you talk a little bit about the first year advisor, when students should get contacted by their advisor, and when to what to expect from that relationship?
Absolutely. So actually, you can talk about this too, Brandon. You're one this fall. So the first contact from advisors is probably happening right now. In fact, I know it's happening now because I've had students contact me and advisors contact me regarding course schedules and starting to develop a relationship already between the advisor and the student. So that advisor-student contact is happening starting now, and it will continue all the way through until you actually arrive on campus. Advisors just received their course rosters for their first year seminars. And like Lisa said, one of the great things about our first year program here at Hobart and William Smith is that the first year seminar course, that instructor is your advisor for the first at least year, if not 2 years, until you declare a major or you choose to change advisors after that first semester, possibly. And the reason we do that is because we want your primary contact to be a course instructor, someone who has you in class at least 2 to 3 times a week and sees exactly what you do in class, what your needs are, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and can help advise you in a real productive and robust way. So as you move forward in the advising relationship, that advisor sees you in class, has you in class, is evaluating you, is looking at your writing, is talking to you about your interests, and is advising you in different directions. So you will be having hopefully a really wonderful experience with your advisor. We keep these seminars very small on purpose so that your advisor gets to know you and gets to have a strong relationship with you. And we've seen over the years lots of students stay with their first year advisors all the way through the 4 years. Other students stay with them for a semester and then move on to declare a major and move on to a major advisor. So it's up to you, but we think that in that first semester, that critical first semester, this relationship between you and the advisor is very critical, especially with you being in the classroom with the advisor as the instructor of the first year seminar course.
Thank you. So a little bit about orientation. We actually got together today just to review our very first draft of the orientation schedule. So we're excited that we may be able to put a little bit about that schedule on the website so that you can get a look at it. Pre-orientation activities will occur for early arrivals. So what does that mean? Now, the pre-orientation adventure program, known as POAP, did have to be canceled this year. I know the orientation coordinators posted on Instagram about it. Dave Mapstone, he coordinates that program. He's very disappointed. And the student assistant will be reaching out to everyone individually. But there are other activities that will happen while you or your student is on campus, particularly if you have a movement appointment for August 14th or August 15th. So every day there will be, in the morning, if you are not quarantined, there will be a self-guided tour or something you can do on campus to walk around and get yourself acquainted to this place. If you are in quarantine during that time, there will be remote things that you can do, such as remote bingo or a remote scavenger hunt to get to know this place as well. Then there will be lunch provided to you. During that time, it'll be a to-go meal, so you'll be able to go to Saga or a dining location here in Scanlon and pick from the menu that's there and then bring that back to your room or sit outside. We have tables outside. For that time period, it is to go up until the start of orientation. Then in the afternoon, there will be a remote session that anyone who is here on campus and also still at home, whose movement appointment hasn't occurred yet, they can log in as well. And it might be a session with the deans, a session with career services to talk about all the resources that are available to you. Those will be the pre-orientation activities. And then your resident assistant on your floor may organize some small in-person on the floor activities to help you get to know other people on your floor. Orientation groups are typically groups of 16 people. It's typically everyone in your first year seminar. We've adjusted that a little bit, so the groups are about 8 people each plus your orientation mentor. And what that will allow is every single morning you will get with your orientation mentor, go to some place on campus that is your group's special spot. You will go there and have a discussion. You'll talk about campus life. There'll be guiding questions. You'll check in remotely with everyone, all the other groups, and the orientation coordinators will give you your challenge for the day. Then you'll have lunch, and then you will participate in some remote things in the afternoon, things that require the large group's presence, resources around the counseling center, an introduction to our diversity, equity, and inclusion office. A lot of those introductions will happen via Zoom. Now, your group may decide to do those in person as a group of 8 outside using your mobile phone, using a laptop, or they may decide to do it from your residence hall. But that's the typical format of orientation this year. And there'll be evening socials that you'll rotate through. So a group of 25 in their smaller groups, but a group of 25 might be assigned to do a food truck and watch our fireworks show from the William Smith Hill, while another group of 25 might be watching a film outside of Scanlon, and another 25 might be doing bingo in Saga. So there will be small events, but also remote events in case you don't want to participate in person through some of those social events that are in larger groups. So your orientation group is 8 people. Anything that's larger is at maximum around 25 people. And when it needs to be a little bit larger, say for lunch or dinner, tables will be socially distant and you'll have 2 people per table so that you can still have a conversation while you're eating your meal. One question before I move on to the next slide for Shelle to take over. It says, when does the 14-day clock start? What if I want to come to the 15th and orientation starts on the 20th? New York State says you have to require for 14 days from the day you arrive. So that would mean that you would be quarantined through not only orientation, but also the first few days of classes. So I would recommend looking at your move-in appointment and see if you can get it to be a little bit earlier. Again, we're hoping that next week we'll be able to tell you students will be able to quarantine from home, and that might solve some of these concerns.
All right, so we've received lots of questions before our Zoom meeting, so we thought we would take the opportunity to go through some of these sort of frequently asked questions. Some of these we've talked about, so we'll breeze through them. But once a quarantine student receives a negative COVID test, does quarantine end? Unfortunately, not right now. We are waiting on some additional guidance and working with New York State to try to determine if there's a point where a student may be able to test out of their quarantine. Can we test a student 7 days or 8 days after their quarantine has started? If they get a negative result at that point, they may be able to end quarantine early. At this point, we're still waiting on that guidance, and while we wait, we are going to plan an engaging 14-day quarantine for you. Hopefully we'll get that good news and we will keep you posted. So how are students expected to get a test 5 days before arriving and have the result 2 days later? Brandon talked about this, that there is some flexibility there, allowing for a grace period for your results.
How much COVID testing capacity is the colleges planning to provide? So like I said, we have contracted with the Broad Institute to be able to test every student, and there may be a need by New York State to test other students over the course of the semester. We may need to test, say, 100 students every 2 weeks if New York State requires that in small samples. Some athletes will need to be tested every 14 days because they'll be practicing and using equipment. That is another requirement. So we will also be able to do that for the semester. If you get a test on campus, do you have to quarantine until you get the negative result? We are not currently requiring a quarantine until you get your result, but we do ask for you to be courteous and respectful and try to self-isolate and limit your travel except for meals and restrooms.
So what if my roommate is coming from a quarantine state and I'm not? Do I have to quarantine too? 31 states right now are on the advisory list, so we are doing the absolute best we can. If your roommate is quarantining and you need to arrive while they're in quarantine, we don't ask that you quarantine, but we do ask that you're respectful and that you self-isolate as much as possible until the quarantine period is over for your roommate. Our residence hall rooms are fairly large. We are providing students with hand sanitizer. There will be lots of cleaning supplies and things like that. So if you want to take some of those extra precautions in your room, we would certainly recommend that. But you do not have to quarantine if your roommate is coming from an advisory state. Who will do my laundry while quarantined? Students are very nervous about this. So we are collecting laundry once a week, working with a local laundromat, and then that laundry will be delivered back to you.
So we are asking students to do their laundry regularly. We always ask students to do their laundry regularly. However, we're asking them to do it a little bit more regularly so they can wash their face mask every week, wash their sheets, to be a little bit more cautious. So if a student needs financial assistance, Shelle has the cost for a washer and dryer.
Yes, it's $1.50 to wash and $1.75 to dry.
There you go. If you need financial assistance for that, there's a link right on this site. I ask that you don't submit that form tonight. Start thinking about that in about a week if that is needed, and we can assist you with laundry funds. That money will be put right on your community cash, which is your one card, and you have snack money and community cash, and community cash is what you use for your laundry. Laundry rooms are small. How will those be managed? Each laundry room is different. So in Jackson, Potter, Reese, there are two relatively larger laundry rooms. And so they each have two, or I'm sorry, Jackson, Potter, and Reese share two, while Sherrill, Hershon, and Durfee each have one. So what we've decided, because our residence halls are very different, is that the professional staff, so each neighborhood on our campus has a professional staff member in the Office of Residential Education. They'll work to determine how best to decide when people can use the laundry room. They might assign different floors or different students by last name, by class schedule. It'll be different for every residential area. However, one thing that's helpful is the My One Card website, which your student will get when they get their one card, allows you to check the availability of machines and reserve them. So if you look on your phone and you say, okay, there are two washers and I need 2 washers, you can click on them and reserve it with your username. And then when you go down to the machine, when you swipe your card, it releases it to you. It only holds it for 15 minutes, so you can't reserve one for 8 p.m. and at 7 a.m. But it will be helpful in determining the availability of the machines. So Lisa and Dave, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, I think we've answered some of these already, but it might be helpful just to repeat it.
Sure. Yeah, I think we have a few people who've come in a little bit later, which I understand. There's so many competing demands on everybody's time right now. So again, we've put the vast majority of new first years ourselves, the dean's offices, mostly Dean Kelly Payne and Dean Mink did those, and David and I helped out a bit, but most of them are in 3 courses, and they'll get to choose their 4th at orientation with help from their advisor, who's their first year seminar professor. Most of the advisors are getting in touch now. A few have been out getting emails out to students today and will be tomorrow. A few will be next week because others are away from their email this week. So you should really, if you're a student, should be checking regularly your HWS email if you haven't figured that out already. And certainly, please, as possible, keep your families updated because they're as worried about this, probably more so than you are. I know I felt that way with both my daughters. So, and again, it's Joe Mink and Kelly Payne who are the classes of 2024 deans, and we'll follow students all the way through.
Great, thank you. So if we didn't answer your question, we got to a lot, but if we didn't answer your question, go ahead and put it in the question and answer. We have a few questions right now, and I always wanted to be a talk show host, so I was delegated this morning with reading the questions and deciding who gets to answer them. So there are a few questions about textbooks and the AP classes. So could you go over that again, Dean Kaenzig?
Sure. So textbooks, most are available through the bookstores certainly here. So if you have questions, you can contact the college store directly as a student or certainly even as a parent or guardian. In terms of AP scores, the AP, the College Board sends us a huge report with any student who put on there that they wanted their scores sent to Hobart and William-Smith, which is the vast majority of usually the students who end up attending here. If your student's not sure if they did or not, they can go onto the College Board website. Hopefully they still remember their username and password. If not, do the thing where they can remind you of what it is. And you can request that the score, the official score report, be sent to us. Some students sometimes have an official score report in a sealed envelope from the College Board. You can certainly drop that off to our offices too if that's easier, but the vast majority of students will have already had it sent to us. So you can just email Dean Mink and Dean Payne in the coming weeks. Neither of them are in the office this week, so don't email this week, but next week and the week after that to just double check with them that they've received your scores. And they'll be slowly getting those reported. And it's really up to each individual department and program on campus how they choose to record those. Some that allows you to move up. The vast majority of it, it's just some extra credits towards your graduation.
Okay, there are some housing questions. Shelle, can I move my students' belongings into their residence hall before they finish quarantine? They actually will be, just to finish that part, but then I'll ask you to talk about how you can move your belongings in early. Your student will be quarantining if they need to quarantine in their residence hall space. So they will move into their space, they'll get their test or submit their test documentation, get their keys and move into their space. So they are quarantining in their own residence hall space during that time. Shelle, can you talk about how people, if they are from the local area, can drop their belongings off early?
Absolutely. So students who wish to drop belongings off between August 1st and August 7th will simply sign up for a move-in time between August 1st and August 7th. We will know that those times, that the earlier dates of those times are for students who are dropping off belongings. We'll be pulling those lists and reaching out to all of those students just to confirm if you are here starting your quarantine or if you are here dropping off your items. And then once your items are in your room, we'll make sure that your room is secured. And then once you are ready to arrive back to campus for our local students, you'll be able to get your key and your COVID test at that point. So if you are dropping belongings off, if you are a local student, there is no need to get your COVID test before dropping off your belongings. You'll get your COVID test when you officially check in.
Okay. I know, Dean Kaenzig, you talked a little bit about books. There's more questions about that. So either Dave or Dean Ken or Dave or Lisa, how early can we begin getting books? Is the college store currently open to walk into? How should books be purchased before classes begin or before arriving to campus?
Such good questions. The college store is available and open for limited hours right now. They'll have much more extended hours once we open up or get closer to the time when we have more students on campus. So you can just go on the HWS website, type in college store, and their hours will pop up, and you can call them and they're happy to answer any of your questions. Certainly they're specific to any class or situation or book. But that's certainly where a lot of students get their books from. It's better probably for most first years, and Dave, please feel free to jump in here, but for most first year students to get their books in advance, just one less thing they have to be stressful about. Unless they're quite sure, they might be dropping or adding a course, in which case they might want to wait until the first day of classes. But my experience, at least with both my daughters and with 17 plus years of students, is that it's another thing that first years feel like they have to worry about if they have to get their books during the first week of classes. So they can get them in advance or at orientation. The college store will also bundle all the books together, so you can just come in and grab all your books for your classes when you're ready to do that. Dave?
Yeah, I think my advice would be during orientation would be a great time to do it. Let that fourth course get selected. Make any changes to your schedule that you need to make. And then before classes start, like Lisa said, get to the bookstore, get those books there. They will have them readily available, and then pick them up there. I know a lot of folks want to get to Amazon or one of the online stores and try to get them cheaper. And that is definitely what I think, certainly my kids are doing, and Lisa, your kids are probably doing the same thing. And that's absolutely fine. But I think for first semester students, I would recommend probably going to the bookstore for the first time, just to make sure that you've got your course schedule set in that very short window of time before classes start. You can go into the store, physically grab your books, know what you're getting, and then walk out of the bookstore with a pile of books that you know are the books for the courses that you're in.
Yeah. And also faculty are understanding. For some reason, students don't have those books on the first day. They'll certainly understand. But often first years are worried about, did I get the right edition, the right year, that kind of thing. Many of the books that faculty assign have multiple editions, different years. So I think for first semester, first years, just trying to be as careful about that as you possibly can. And certainly the college store can probably answer almost every question that you have. And in future semesters, definitely in our family, we took the hybrid approach. There were some books that were bought at the college store, and there were quite a few that were bought through other types of vendors or rented online, which was a new thing that I have learned in recent years. So, but it's a little tough for those first semester students to feel as comfortable doing that.
One of the questions came in that I'll answer. What are the college's plans if a surge of the virus in upstate New York occurs? And we are with you. All of the people on this call live in the local Geneva community. I live right around the block from campus, as does Shelle. We have kids in the local, well, that's interesting. All four of us have kids that went through the local Geneva schools. So we care greatly about this. Hobart and William Smith Colleges is actually really lucky because our Hub's Health Center is managed by Finger Lakes Health, the regional medical system that manages our hospital, numerous primary care physicians, as well as the urgent care in the area. And they are connected to the Rochester regional system, right? So we are in touch with the Finger Lakes Health professionals that would tell us the metrics to be looking for to decide whether we need to say, you know what, maybe classes this week or the following week, we need to think about are they remote from in-residence halls? Do we limit visitation a little bit? Do we increase testing on campus? Do we switch to meals being delivered to rooms for a certain period of time? They will really help guide us with that, and we talk with them. I know I talked with the Hubs team 3 times today, but we talk with them every day, and they really do help us with these answers. Unfortunately, we don't know what will happen, but what I can tell you is that we've taken every precaution to make this campus a really safe one, a healthy one, and that this is a community commitment of our students to help us keep it healthy. Shelle, could you talk about, I'm going to give you 2 questions, and they're different. One is, you mentioned moving in with minimal belongings. What are those minimal belongings? And then what is the procedure for a non-quarantine student to be in a roommate with somebody from, say, an advisory state?
Okay, I will do my best to answer both. So when we say minimal belongings, we certainly recognize that your residence hall room is going to be your home for the next few months. We want you to be bringing your comfortable bedding. We want you to be bringing pictures of your dog and your friends and the things that are going to make you feel warm and fuzzy when you go back to your residence hall room. What we don't want you to bring are really, really large futons and multiple lamps and things that would be difficult to take with you in the unlikely event of an emergency closure. We want students to keep their rooms relatively clean, right? We know that in order to stop the spread, we need to be sanitizing and wiping things and keeping things clean. That's much easier to do when you don't bring 40 pairs of shoes with you. So bring the things that you think you need, pack your clothes, talk with your friends, talk with your family, and bring half of what you wanted to bring. Second question, quarantine versus non-quarantine? Yes, much better in the morning than the evening. So it's a great question. So students who are coming from those advisory states have to quarantine for 14 days. We're still waiting on the guidance from the state. Right now, we're assuming 14-day quarantine on campus. Those students will have all meals brought to them. Those students should not be leaving their room other than to get some fresh air or to use the restroom facility. Students who are rooming with a quarantine student who are non-quarantine students do not have to follow the same strict structure. So those students are able to go and get a to-go meal. They are able to go downtown and, while wearing a mask, check out some shops and things like that. But we do ask that those students who are non-quarantining with a quarantine roommate are just being a little bit extra careful. Wiping things down, staying socially distant, respecting the 6 feet distance between other students. I'm hoping that helped. If it didn't, please feel free to ask more questions in the chat.
A question that I'll answer is if their residence halls close around Thanksgiving time, will they be able to leave their items in their rooms? So people go home in November and then are coming back in the spring. Right now we are anticipating that they may be able to leave, that their assignments will be the same and that will be fine. We don't know that information yet, to be quite honest. We'll get that out, I would say definitely by move-in time, but we're making that determination right now. One of the things that we were able to do is we de-densified a lot of spaces across campus, which meant a lot of doubles became singles, a lot of triples became doubles. Some people requested a single and there were no singles available, so we had to adjust and maybe make a double room into a single for a period of time. If that's the case, we may need to evaluate what our spaces look like in the spring semester when new students come, when we have transfer students in the spring semester. So we have to evaluate that a little bit closer to move-in time. Dean Kaenzig, there's a question about can international students participate remotely? And if so, how does that work for students belonging to biology or taking biology courses?
Sure. Yeah, it's a hard situation right now, I think, for a lot of international students, and we're certainly doing the best that we can. And because every student situation is different, depending on what country they're currently living in, whether they've been here in the US, et cetera, I would really encourage any students with those sorts of questions to be in touch with Marilyn Unack. She's probably been in touch with you many times already, but I would ask Marilyn specifically for her guidance there. And then after you've talked with Marilyn, any of us in the Dean's office will be able to help you with figuring out what comes next. I know Marilyn's been working closely with our international students, and so she'll be happy to answer any specific questions that might be a different answer depending on what country you're currently living in. So please do be in touch with Marilyn over email, and then we will work with her and with you to do whatever we need to do for this coming semester.
Thank you. Shelle, can you talk about cars and parking on campus and where first-year students can park?
Yes, so we do allow first-year students to bring cars on campus, and you can pre-register before you even get here. I believe the website is, no, is that not correct?
You have to pre-register.
Okay, you can and you should pre-register. I believe it is parking.hws.edu. If that doesn't work, Google HWS parking and it's the first link. So you pre-register your car, and then when you move in at the barn, we will have your parking sticker there waiting for you. There are a couple of places that first-year students can park. There is some space behind the JPR Residence Hall complex. There's also a first-year lot almost across from where the barn is. So there's ample parking for those first years bringing cars.
Thank you. And I marked a question as we were answering it live because I misread it. So it said, if a student has a car on campus and they want to go home before Thanksgiving, are they able to? It really depends on where home is. Now, I will say that we will ask people to be really cautious about where they're going. We say that you can travel within the region. If you're traveling back to a state that is still on an advisory list for an extended period of time, New York State may require you to have to quarantine again. We really don't know that answer, but I would just be thinking responsibly about your travel. Students do have to quarantine either before arriving to campus. I'm sorry, students have to take a COVID test before arriving to campus or when they arrive to campus. So there's multiple testing options available. Sorry, Shelley, this is one that you didn't answer earlier. Is there laundry service available after quarantine?
You know, I don't believe so. Is that correct, Dr. Barile?
Yes.
Okay. So at this time, no, but there are many laundromats and laundry services in the Finger Lakes area. So we have had some students in the past who have work directly with a laundry company to do pickups and things like that, but that's not something that would be coordinated through the residential education office.
One question, and we have about 3 to 5 minutes left. We'll go a few minutes over, and we'll try to get to as many questions as possible. If we don't get to your question, we'll have our contact information. And some of the questions I might leave unanswered feel very specific to your situation. So I'd ask for you, I'll put a message in there, but ask for you to email us. Dean Mapstone, what does scheduling look like after this? So we place students in classes, they pick their 4th class. What does October, November registration look like?
Yeah, so regular registration for the rest of the student body, which will be first-year students come October, November, basically looks like the following. You'll be working with your advisor. You'll have an advising week where there'll be advising sessions with your advisor, and those are essentially mandatory in order to get cleared to register. You will then, after having that advising session with your advisor, you'll talk about your goals, what kind of major, minor you might want to pursue, possibly pursuing internships over the course of the summer, and what courses might get you there to take in the spring semester, all those kinds of things. And then you would go through course registration, which would happen in late October, early November. And that is through the PeopleSoft system, which happens from that point forward every semester until students graduate. So essentially, you'll be practicing this sort of registration for courses when you register for your 4th course this coming orientation. So we left you with 3 courses right now. When you register for your 4th course during orientation, you'll actually be logging into PeopleSoft, the site that you log into to register. And that is the same site that you'll log into and use to register for courses in late October, early November, after you meet with your advisor for the following spring semester.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Looking through, that answers kind of most of the broad questions that I think we can answer for tonight. I'll go through and put some answers into the ones that are still lingering in the chat with some contact information for folks. But My Housing, it's a link that we reference a lot, is housing.hws.edu. PeopleSoft is psportal.hws.edu. And the really great part is on our hws.edu website on the upper right, there is a quick links drop down that allows you to see all of the really important forms and links there. And you can also just click on the student tab on our website that brings you to all the really frequently utilized links. You can email ResEd at resed@hws.edu. You can email the Fall 2020 account, and you can email any of us directly, and we'll get back with you as soon as possible. So with that, we really appreciate you spending some time with us. I'm going to stay on and answer some of the questions in the Q&A for maybe 5 more minutes. But otherwise, thanks for attending and have a good evening.
Thank you.